They saw him every day, sitting on the corner of the street, legs folded under a tattered shawl, head bowed, hands stretched, not for pity, but for survival. People passed him by without a second glance. Some tossed coins, others turned their heads. To the world, he was invisible. Just another beggar blending into the chaos of the city. But inside him, something burned. He wasn't born a beggar. No child dreams of sleeping on concrete and eating leftovers. He had dreams once. Big dreams. He once believed he could change the world. But life can be cruel. His father died when he was 12. His mother followed a year later. Relatives refused to take him in. The streets became his only home, and hunger his only companion. Still, he watched the world. Every morning, as shopkeepers rolled up shutters and businessmen walked by in crisp suits, he watched. He listened. He learned. He began to notice patterns. Which shops attracted customers? Which ones didn't? How people spoke, how they sold, how they earned. He didn't go to school, but the streets taught him everything. One day, a man dropped a sandwich by mistake. The beggar picked it up, ran after him, and returned it. The man smiled. "You're a good kid," he said, handing him a 5-rupee coin. That was the first time someone had seen him, not as a beggar, but as a human. That feeling, it stayed with him, so he began helping, carrying groceries for elderly women, cleaning the area outside shops in exchange for leftover food. He didn't beg anymore. He worked, little by little, not for money, but for self-respect. Years passed. He was still poor, still homeless, but his mind, it was rich. Rich with observations, rich with questions. And one day, he asked one of the shopkeepers, "How do you start a business?" The man laughed. "You need money, boy." He nodded, but he didn't stop asking. He asked others, watched videos from phone shops when no one was looking, peeked through windows when people watched business news. He started collecting trash, paper, bottles, plastics, and selling them for a rupee or two. Every coin he earned, he saved. He didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't even eat more than necessary. His goal was bigger than survival now. He wanted to start a tea stall. Just a stall. Nothing fancy, just something of his own. But the world doesn't make it easy. Every time he tried to rent a corner, they laughed at him. "You're a beggar. Go back to the streets." He faced rejection after rejection, 50 times, 100 times. But he kept trying. Finally, one kind-hearted vendor offered him space beside his newspaper stand, just a meter wide. That was enough. He borrowed a kettle, bought tea leaves with his savings, and began. The first day, no one came. The second day, a couple of workers stopped by. 5 rupees a cup, he said, nervously. They took a sip, and smiled. That smile, it was everything. Word spread. His tea wasn't extraordinary, but his energy was. He served every cup with a good morning, and a "you'll have a great day today." People began coming not just for the tea, but for the positivity. He remembered names, greeted people like old friends. He upgraded from a kettle to a cart, from a cart to a stall, from tea to snacks. Slowly, he started hiring other street kids who were like him once. He gave them shelter, food, purpose. Years passed. The stall became a cafe, then a chain of cafes. Investors began to notice. His story spread across the city. A former beggar who now employed hundreds. People who once walked past him now stood in line at his stores. But he never forgot the streets. Every month, he'd go back, sit on that same corner, not to beg, but to remind himself where he came from. One rainy evening, a boy came to him, barefoot, hungry, eyes filled with the same pain he once carried. The man took off his own jacket, gave it to the boy, and whispered, "Your story's not over," because that's how it began for him. The boy looked at the jacket, then back at the man, confused. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. The man smiled gently. "Because someone once believed in me, when I was just like you." The next morning, he brought the boy to one of his smaller cafe kitchens, gave him food, a place to sleep in the storeroom, told him, "If you want to work, I'll teach you." The boy didn't know how to cook, didn't even know how to read, but he showed up every day, just like the man had years ago, scrubbing floors, carrying crates, watching, learning. The man saw himself in the boy. The same hunger, not just for food, but for dignity. Time moved forward. The cafes expanded. The brand name **Rise Brew ** was now written in bold on high streets, inside malls, even airports. Journalists asked, "What's your secret to success?" And he always said, "Kindness, grit, and the streets." People assumed he was exaggerating, until they saw his photos, barefoot, dirty, sitting in rags at age 15. That image went viral. The beggar who became a billionaire. News channels picked it up. Business schools invited him to speak. Ivy League colleges wanted to document his story. But he never wore a suit. Even at conferences, he wore simple clothes. because he never wanted to forget the texture of hunger, of being unseen. That pain had shaped him. In his speeches, he didn't talk about money. He spoke about rejection, about sleeping under flyovers, about eating out of trash bins, and about hope, the thing no one can buy, but everyone needs. One day, during an award ceremony, he was given a standing ovation. A big investor approached him and said, "You've come so far. What do you want next?" The man looked around, the lights, the cameras, the crowd. Then he quietly said, "I want to build schools for kids like me, who have nothing but dreams." And he did. His foundation built learning centers in slums, gave jobs to ex-beggars, provided scholarships to orphans, trained teenagers in entrepreneurship. He wasn't just building cafes anymore, he was building futures. But his heart always belonged to the streets. On his 50th birthday, instead of throwing a party, he sat silently on the same pavement where his journey began. That corner of the road, where his story started with an empty stomach and a full heart. A child walked by, tugged at his shirt, and asked, "Uncle, are you poor?" He chuckled. "No, Beta. I'm the richest man I know." Because richness isn't just about money. It's about rising when the world expects you to stay down. It's about believing in light when your life is full of shadows. It's about sharing your bread, even when you're starving. It's about not forgetting where you came from. So if you're watching this right now, and life has knocked you down, remember this man. He had no home, no money, no family, only rejection, pain, and a burning belief that this can't be the end. That belief turned a beggar into a billionaire. And not just any billionaire, but the kind who lifts others as he rises. Years passed, and the world changed. But he remained the same, grounded, humble, quietly powerful. They started calling him the people's billionaire. Not because he gave the biggest donations, but because he walked with those who had nothing. He would show up, without notice, at one of his old cafes, sit beside a new recruit, wash dishes with them, eat the same meal they ate. He'd listen to their stories, to their struggles, because he knew every voice matters. And when people asked him, "What's the biggest lesson you've learned?" he paused, smiled, and said, "That even the most broken life can still become a masterpiece." He started writing his story, not in a book, but through actions. Every child he mentored, every life he touched, every hand he held when the world turned away. He created a special program, From Streets to Startups, helping beggars and street kids learn design, marketing, and how to build their own businesses. The world watched in awe. He didn't just make money, he made meaning. He didn't just build a company, he built hope. And even with billions in his bank, he still remembered the night he slept under a leaking plastic sheet, hugging his knees to stay warm, because that pain was his origin. He taught people this, asterisk, you are not your circumstances. You are your choices, asterisk. One of his most powerful interviews was with a young podcaster who asked, "Did you ever hate the world for what it did to you?" He looked at the camera, voice trembling, and said, "I didn't hate the world. I just promised myself I'd change it." One winter, he met a little girl begging outside a hospital. She reminded him of himself, hungry, tired, invisible. He sat down, gave her food, and asked her name. She whispered, "Mira." He asked, "Do you want to go to school?" She nodded, eyes wide. That night, he didn't sleep. He stayed up creating a scholarship fund just for girls like Mira, and named it after his mother, the one who left him too soon. Years later, Mira became a doctor. She opened a clinic in the same slum she grew up in. When asked who inspired her, she said, "A stranger who saw me when no one else did." His legacy wasn't the cafes or the wealth. It was the people, the lives he touched, the belief he planted, the fire he sparked in millions, that no matter how low you fall, you can rise. So now, if you ever find yourself doubting your journey, remember his. He wasn't lucky, he wasn't gifted, he was just relentless. In pain, he kept walking. In rejection, he kept believing. And in darkness, he became the light. Because that's what true greatness is. Not how high you climb, but how many you lift on the way up. And now, to everyone watching this, if this story moved you, if it reminded you of your own struggles, your own dreams, your own strength, then like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Dream Fuel Stories. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we ignite dreams. And maybe, just maybe, your story is next.